Now, after Israel, it is Iran that has threatened retaliation. Iran reserves the right to respond to the Israeli attacks. Iran air defense, despite the previous warnings to the Islamic Republican officials of criminal and illegal regime to avoid any adventurous actions, this fake regime attacked parts of military centers in Tehran. Now we are seeing it is Iran that has responded to the precision strikes being done by Israel, and they are saying that we have the right to respond to Israeli airstrikes. Now, after Israel made a statement, it is now Iran that is threatening retaliation. In a statement, Iran has said that it reserves the right to respond to these Israeli attacks. Despite the previous warnings to the Islamic Republican officials that there will be regime change if this happens, they have been asked to avoid any adventurous actions. Now, this fake regime attacked parts of military centers in Tehran. So this is a warning which has been shot to Israel by Iran. Iran is now threatening retaliation. It was Israel that, when they came out with a statement, in fact, it was the IDF spokesperson which said that what we wanted to do, we have done it, and now we do not want the war to escalate. The IDF spokesperson came out with a statement. In the statement, they categorically said, my colleague Gaurav Sawant is now taking over. Gaurav, over to you.
Says Israeli Defense Forces strike Iran. The big question is, what does this mean for the situation in West Asia? And joining me on this broadcast is Irina Sukerman, a security analyst who joins us from the United States of America. Irina Sukerman, how do you look at these latest developments? It was on the cards, but the timing of this attack and the impact of this attack in your appreciation.
Well, thank you very much for having me here. The timing is interesting because Israel wanted to accomplish this retaliatory strike before the November election, because this is a good opportunity to take this action before it becomes clear who is the next president. It could also give an opportunity for the Biden administration to bow out with some level of grace and goodwill, and give a sense of accomplishment to all involved. In fact, this strike was supposed to happen a few days earlier, but was disrupted by the leak of the plans from the Pentagon, which is now under the investigation by the FBI, which is looking into several officials at the Pentagon potentially responsible for the leak and the disruption of these plans. The impact will depend a lot on what targets were actually taken down. We know that there was a hit on a power plant, but so far the details have been scarce, and they could range from some symbolic sites, like headquarters,
Okay.
RGC headquarters, Khamenei headquarters, to drone and missile production sites and facilities, to Air Force bases and other military bases. So Israel had an opportunity to do some severe military damage.
What are options?
Iran's capabilities.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and what are options for Iran now? Ayatollah Ali Khamenei warned in case Israel targets Iran, there will be an intense strike back. 181 ballistic missiles last time. In your appreciation, will there be a bigger response than last time, this time?
Well, that depends on what Israel took down. If they had decimated Iranian Air Force and or degraded their missile and drone capabilities sufficiently, Iran might not be in a position to do any serious retaliation by these conventional means in the near future. They could retaliate by other means, which could include some of their proxies, or they could include cyber attacks and other potential EMP attacks. However, if Israeli airstrikes only damaged some of the facilities and did not fully destroy all of the missile and drone capacity, Iran could significantly increase their future missile air attack against Israel and continue testing Israel's air defense capabilities. We now know that the U.S. placed a THAAD system. This could also mean that U.S. American troops could potentially end up being involved in any future direct attack by Iran on Israel, which is quite undesirable for many reasons. Israel at one point also reached out to the Biden administration about potentially placing a second THAAD system in case a future retaliation from Iran is significantly bigger than the previous attacks, which leads me to believe that the Israelis were concerned that they would not be able to take out sufficient number of missiles, of long-range missiles, and they could continue
Yes.
posing a danger and overwhelm Israel's defense capabilities and even THAAD defense capabilities, which leaves still a lot of room for escalation in the future potentially.
And in the way you look at the developing situation, so 1st of October was when Iran struck Israel. Israel took 26 days to strike back. Will Iran's retaliation also, Iran will prepare, wait for the right opportunity and then strike back? Perhaps, this spiral of violence. Who's on top of the escalation ladder in your view?
Well, I think Iran will want to wait for the election results. If Kamala Harris wins, I think we could see much of the same policies by the similar to the Biden administration, and if so, Iran has no reason to stop as long as Israel continues limiting its response. And Israel made it very clear that they do not want an escalation, and their intention was to send a message of deterrence through these targeted strikes. It was not to further escalate the situation or even to cause a significant upheaval inside Iran. These strikes, by the way, had the approval and support of the United States. President Biden, prior to these strikes, did say that he had a fairly good idea of Israel's intended targets, and even if he didn't know every detail of everything, he approved the general range of it. So this was not fully coordinated with the US, but did receive US backing and support. If Trump wins, Iran could see potential setbacks in the face of sanctions against its proxies and some of its officials, and a stronger response by the US to some of the provocations against US attacks. But I doubt that the Trump administration would want to intervene directly in bigger conflicts. I think they would prefer that either Israel handled it quickly and strongly, or wrapped up the operations and cut some sort of a deal with Iran, between Iran and the White House. And that is something else that Iran will be careful to watch for, whether the administration will pursue a more hawkish or a more isolationist position, which is anyone's guess, because some of the rhetoric coming from different officials around Trump seem to point to different directions.
Yeah, the fact that Israel was able to fly 100 fighter jets over several countries, almost 2,000 kilometers, does that indicate Israel has tacit support of countries in the region and, of course, the United States? And does Iran increasingly find itself isolated?
I think to some extent we are seeing a divergent policy in the region. I think some of the states for sure are supportive of Israel's position, some are neutral and watching to see what happens, and some are very much opposed to the way things are, but they're certainly not going to go against the United States, so they're not necessarily providing any support, they're just not interfering and causing more problems than they should. We do have to see that there's almost a dual policy in terms of Iran. in terms of economic and financial deals, there's actually a growing and closer cooperation between the GCC and Iran. In fact, there are rumors that the GCC may propose bringing Iran into the GCC community, despite the fact that GCC came out in response to the takeover of Iran by the Islamic Republic and as a self-defense measure by the Arab states against this new regime back in the 80s. But things are changing quickly now. But some countries there clearly feel more threatened than others, and some of them have resisted normalizing with Iran. Some of them still have not normalized with Iran, unlike many of the Arab states in the last few years. So we are seeing that there is some cooperation, but there's also conflicts. There are also financial and other interests, and there are also other dynamics going on behind the scenes that aren't all necessarily about Israel or about a direct confrontation between Iran and the Arab states. I think it's premature to say that Iran is completely
right now
isolated.
The information is very sketchy in public domain. We still do not know what military targets Israel has taken down. But will Ayatollah Ali Khamenei's regime be under pressure to strike back and hard? More than 181 ballistic missiles, unlike last time? Or will they say, okay, there's a lot of pressure that's coming in from the world. Is Iran fired one salvo, Israel has responded with another salvo and only on military targets. So let's call it quits, and that gives Israel the leeway to go after Hamas, Hezbollah and Houthis and not target the regime in Iran. How do you see this pan out in the days and weeks ahead?
Actually, I think that Iran will be under pressure to respond in some way because it does not want its proxies to be further targeted. Hezbollah has been pretty much decimated by the recent attacks, and Hezbollah has been its most potent ally. Hamas has also been degraded in many ways, but it's also surviving and reconstituting in parts of Gaza. And Iran's agenda is to align elements of Hamas that are growing in West Bank and basically make sure that they reconnect with the remnants of Hamas in Gaza. So they need to make sure that Israel is pressured sufficiently that they cannot fully dedicate themselves to the southern front, and for that to happen, their proxies need to remain to retain some level of independence, some level of functionality. They cannot be fully destroyed. That would put an end to Iran's long-term projects for the region. And so it needs to find a balance between surviving to fight another day, even if it takes years to rebuild, but also not losing face in public in the immediate future. I think they will be looking to find a way,
and that does look increasingly difficult.
Not directly.
Okay. With Israel making it very clear, it will ensure that Hamas never rules Gaza Strip again, and Hezbollah is no longer a force to reckon with south of the Litani River in southern Lebanon. Ma'am, for joining me here on India Today, many thanks.